Hi, everybody, and welcome to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds, a weekly rewatch podcast for TV shows, movies, and possibly some tips and tricks to help subjugate a planet full of filthy organics. My name's Nick Farrow.
And I'm Mike Hilty.
How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good. It's been really crappy weather here the last couple of days. It's been raining almost nonstop. So thankfully, today was my daughter's last day of soccer, and we got an email yesterday saying that it was going to be indoors. The benefit of having indoor soccer is you're not sitting outside in the rain. When she goes to play soccer at 8:30 in the morning, the grass is still a little damp. So you leave with very wet shoes at the end of the game, but we didn't have to deal with that today. But the problem that we ran into with soccer indoors is, boy, the field/court is really small. I feel like we spent half the game just kicking it in again after it goes out of bounds. It just goes from one side to another. And since there's 5, 6, 7-year-olds, they don't have the capacity to understand that, hey, if the ball keeps going, maybe I should try to stop it and move in a different direction instead of just chasing after it.
Oh, yeah, that's all soccer is. It's just running after a ball.
Of course.
Right? That's what I always assumed.
Most popular sport in the world, obviously, because of that. Other than that, I got my flu shot yesterday and my arm really hurts.
The flu shot welt that you get sometimes is not great. Did you get the dermal one or the full shot where they use the little needle and it just goes in the top of your skin? I've noticed that one always ends up being the one that hurts the most and it leaves the biggest welt.
The pharmacy that we go to, it's a Walgreens. They say that you have to wait 15 minutes before you leave, just in case you have a reaction. 2 weeks ago when my wife got it, she did not have to wait the 15 minutes. She just got to leave. I got mine and they were like, you need to wait 15 minutes. Like, why? I've gotten this enough times to know that I never have a reaction to it. So why are you making me wait 15 minutes?
Well, this new strain of vaccine makes people explode. So.
The look I got from the Walgreens worker, that's when I knew I'll go ahead and wait. I won't fight this anymore. I'm so sorry, Walgreens. Part of it's my fault as well because I gave them a little bit of attitude because the line was super long.
And they wanted to hold you against your will.
Do you know
without
what?
you knowing.
It's my fault. I understand.
Problem, it's you.
Yeah.
I can't say it is your fault, to be honest. I've been having such a run of bad luck with retail people myself. I don't know if this is me being a brat because I worked in retail for the better part of a decade. But within 3 or 4 days of each other, a couple weeks ago, I had 3 really bad experiences at 3 different retail establishments where everyone who I dealt with was acting like I was the asshole. And I have no idea why. I must have one of those faces. I ordered the Christmas ornament badgie that they have at Hallmark. A couple weeks ago, I had forgotten what the release date of the ornament was. I thought it was the 1st of October. When the lady gave me the form to fill out late August, early September, she's like, comes out in October, just come in and we'll have it to the side for you. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I went in 2 weeks ago, not knowing if it was actually in. So I went in and before I had left, Julie had told me that there was an email from Hallmark that she deleted and she didn't read it. She's like, I just deleted it. So she's like, maybe it was your ornament. I don't know. So I was like, all right, fine, whatever. I'll go in and I'll check. And so I went in and there's a couple people behind the counter. I'm like, hi, I'm not sure. And I always start out I may be wrong. Because I know as a former retail employee, I hated when customers acted like they knew everything. So I always go in with I could be the wrong one here. So I'm like, I'm not sure, but I wanted to see if my ornament was in yet. And they're like, what ornament? And I'm like the ornaments. I pre-ordered one. They're like, you pre-ordered it here? I go, a nice lady gave me a form and I filled it out. And they're like, what ornament is it? And so I told them it's the Star Trek Badgie one. And then another lady just cuts in, did you get a call? And I'm like, no, but you guys have my wife's number. So if you had called her, she would not have answered. I guarantee you that. That is an unknown number, will not answer, does not pick up. So you could have called. I'm like, she said there was an email. Well, we don't email you. we never send emails. I'm like, whoa.
Wow. Okay. Message
He's up
received.
there. And so,
Hallmark.
like, there's one, and then another lady comes out from the back and she's like, there's an ornament. You're missing an ornament. What's going on? And I'm like, I wanted to see if it was in yet. Like, I didn't know. I don't remember what the date was. I thought she said October. So, like, it's October 1st. Maybe it'd be here. And they're all like, get the hell out of our store. That's how I felt like. I'm like, okay, all right, well. And they're like, no, we'll call you when it comes in. So don't come back until we call you. I'm like, okay, great.
Of all the places to get that attitude from,
I
Hallmark
know.
is not very high on my list for that.
I was not expecting that because the lady who helped me pre-order it was like the sweetest old grandma. I was expecting her to make me cookies after I finished. Like, that's how nice she was. So, like, I was not expecting like the third degree. And they were like, this guy's an idiot.
One of these episodes, I would like to keep talking about retail jobs because I've had a fair amount of them that have very fun stories. So one of these times we'll have to swap some
There you go.
experience.
At retail stories after dark. I've got some good ones. I used to work undercover security at Target.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, I've got good stories.
okay, cool. We'll have to do that. But in the meantime, do you think we should get into this episode?
Yeah, I think let's do it. This week we'll be watching Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 7, A Few Badgeys More.
Once upon a time. Now this is a story all about how.
Have you ever had a dream you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
Well, we open up on the debris field from the season 1 finale, and that's where Rutherford's original headpiece containing the Badgey program is floating in space. In fact, I'm almost positive this is like a shot for shot. Well, not shot for shot. It's animated. They probably just used the same animation from the finale of last season because this was the post-credit scene. You see Rutherford's original headpiece get beamed up on a tractor beam into a Drukmani scavenger ship. You get to see a Drukmani lower deck officer finding it. And I guess their big thing is claiming salvage rights because that's all they do this episode.
I have a question for you. Yeah. I kind of want to hear your thoughts. Why do you think they waited until now to do this and not address this in any of the earlier seasons?
The Badgey of it all? It's a good question. It's really funny because we all, and when I say we, I mean the Star Trek community as a whole on the internets, like Facebook, and even in like the CinemaSins Star Trek Discord chat, the big theory was that the mysterious ship was related to Badgey, Peanut Hamper, and Agimus, due to the fact that last season, Peanut Hamper and Agimus got placed in a prison together, and the Rutherford eyepiece thing that had Badgey in it was the post-credit scene of the season. So somehow we all collectively went, Badgey, Peanut Hamper, and Agimus are going to do something, therefore they'll be in an episode together and they're going to be like the big bad of the season. And then the poster for this season, Agimus is on there with this mysterious ship. Maybe it was the poster that really just made us all theorize this. I think it's so weird that they all actually ended up in the same episode together. But as far as why they waited till now to drop Badgey in, no idea. It's weird that they all ended up in the same episode. And are not in any way associated with the mysterious ship. So now 90% of the theories that were out there completely gone.
Sure.
So we're on the Drukmani scavenger ship and he finds Badgey's thing, but the captain is standing right there and you got to put a bell on him because he just pops up out of nowhere and he claims salvage rights because he's captain and captain gets first salvage rights.
Obvious.
So double unfortunate for him. Badgey's program activates and tricks him with the promise of Starfleet secrets. He gets him to put the device closer to his face to essentially be assimilated because wires shoot out. They attach themselves forcefully to the captain's face. It's a good thing he was missing an eye already because if he wasn't, this would have hurt.
This taps into one of my greatest fears when it comes to technology is something like that taking over the human body. It's one of my great irrational fears, along with, for a while, one of my irrational fears was looking up at the sun and the sunbeam going through my glasses would set my shoulders up, a la The Simpsons.
You got the irrational part of that fear.
Yes,
Nailed.
absolutely. Absolutely. They're completely irrational. I know. I don't need you judging me for
I
that.
don't know. I think I feel like I need to judge you a little on that one. Hey, if we ever do merch, it's gonna be some form of glasses setting a t-shirt on fire. That's
Okay.
gotta be our first t-shirt.
Let us know in the comments. Do you want
Yeah,
merch?
you want to wear a shirt with our faces on it? Oh, also let us know in the comments. Look at that thumbnail. Who do you think is who?
Yeah, that's
Which one's Nick and which one's Mike? I mean, I think I'm one and you're the other, but I'd be interested. We'll talk offline so we don't influence the poll that no one takes. Maybe Steve will take the poll. Well, maybe. We'll see.
Okay, that works.
So we go to the credits, and when we come back, we're once again on a lower decks of an alien ship, and this time it's a Binar ship. For those of you familiar with Star Trek: The Next Generation, which is not Mike,
Definitely not.
The Binars appeared in an episode, and we'll go over it in more detail later. They you probably noticed there's two of them. There's like double the amount of Binars in this ship than there is on any of the previous lower decks that we've seen. Because they run in pairs. We get the typical opening that only just last week we were discussing how it would be better if they don't give us too many more of these. And I really felt like this was being done at me because, like, what are the odds that last week I say if they do it more than 2 more episodes, it will officially be too repetitive. And then to have them open us with 2 opening scenes, essentially showing us the lower decks. We got the Drukmani and then we've got the Binar. And on top of the fact, the Binar means that everything is doubled. So not only are we seeing the lower decks, but we're seeing 2 of every lower deck character that they've got for us. 2 captains, 2 first officers. They're doubling it up. I don't know how much more wrong I can be about a thing.
Did you mark on your Paramount Plus app that you did not want to have your information tracked?
Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, God. It's all my fault. So the Binars, they don't, though. I think the one nice thing about this episode is the Binars don't speak English and we don't get the universal translator. So we have no idea what they're talking about. They're just like blipping and blooping at each other. So in a way that keeps it from being too repetitive from the previous week's episodes, but they do go through the same motions. You see them chatting on the lower decks. A red alert goes off. They run to the bridge station. The ship is attacked. We see a flash of light, and we're left with debris floating through space. I guess we cut ahead in time because suddenly the Drukmani ship is there, and Badgey, now in command, is pleased with the discovery of the Binar wreckage and starts laughing maniacally.
Maniacal laugh.
On the Cerritos, 4/5 of the gang is all here. Where is T'Lyn? This is the second episode in a row where nowhere to be found, which then my random conspiracy theory brain points to she's not involved in this random ship, is she?
I would think not. I feel like having T'Lyn not appear in your episodes 2 weeks in a row is tantamount to a war crime, and they should all be brought up on charges. Oh, I swear to cow, if she's not in the last 2 episodes, I'm going to be really annoyed. But I have a feeling she got 2 episodes off, and that'll be it for this season. I mean, realistically, what do you do with her this week? She would have kind of just been in the way, and I could understand them not wanting to write off one of our main 4. And then last week as well, I mean, it was a bit bloated with the Freeman storyline. So where does she go?
The noticeable gap in T'Lyn episodes, I don't like it. I want to see more T'Lyn. You're right, not at the expense of our main 4 characters, but at the same time, I definitely missed her, and I definitely am noticing her absence. You know, here's a good example of a reason why this would be, why her absence is kind of felt because Rutherford is getting ready to test out the Sequoia's new grappler arm by having Boimler hold an apple in his outstretched hand, a la William Tell style.
Yep.
And that would be the perfect point where T'Lyn would say, this is a dumb idea. Can we not do this? And can we do this differently?
It wouldn't surprise me if it all just boiled down to money. They paid her for 8 episodes. Like, they can't even put her in just for this opening scene because that means they got to pay the actor the day rate for whatever it is she did. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if it just boiled down to that.
Hollywood, pay your actors. Boimler isn't sure about having to hold an apple and suggests that they use a crate because that makes more sense. But Rutherford explains that they need to be precise as he starts aiming at the grappler arm. But as Tendi starts to encourage Rutherford, he fires. And I wonder if that is supposed to be a Freudian slip to some extent or another. Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah, okay. But rather than hitting the apple, it wildly nails Tendi to the wall. So Tendi escapes the grappler arm by slipping out of her shirt, leaving it stuck to the wall. But Rutherford gets upset because she could have been hurt. And again, they're really hitting us on the head with this Tendiford thing.
Hashtag Tendiford. He seemed too concerned, more concerned than a friend would have for just another friend.
Rutherford says that the grapplers are stupid, and why would the shuttlecraft ever need them? And I'm thinking that this is going to come back at some point at the end of the season to matter.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, but you're absolutely right. The fact that they've been working on the Sequoia now for 2 episodes in a row, it's Chekhov's Sequoia. Like, we're going to, if you don't use that shuttle by the end of the season, I'm going to be very upset with you now because you kind of put it in my head. And by you, I mean you, not Paramount.
Specifically me.
Mike specifically has put that idea in my head. Now I want it.
Here's kind of something that I'm thinking. There's going to be something that happens. The Cerritos is going to be a ship that is destroyed by this random ship. They're gonna get on the Sequoia.
I would not want them to destroy the Cerritos.
I definitely don't want that to happen.
It's Star Trek canon that when you destroy a beloved main series ship, it is replaced by an identical ship that is upgraded and given the letter A at the end of its designation. So we could see a Cerritos A in our future. I don't know. Maybe that could happen.
Okay. That's good to know. So Tendi reminds him that science and engineering are in fact messy, but she loves that he sticks with it, especially when it doesn't work the way he wants it to. Hashtag Tendiford.
They're so cute together now. I don't know why. I hated the idea of shipping them, but now I'm like kind of okay if it happens.
Stick to your guns, you coward.
I don't know. They're convincing me.
Mariner tries to pull Tendi's shirt off the wall, but it doesn't budge, so she leaves to get another shirt before their briefing along with everyone else.
Yes, and in the briefing room, it's the 4 of them with Captain Freeman and Commander Ransom. The captain is explaining to the team that they've received a distress call from a Binar ship, and Command has given Cerritos the mission to investigate. Mariner is very surprised by the vote of confidence that Starfleet is showing them, and is impressed with the level of respect that they've gotten because, the Cerritos is Cali class, bottom of the barrel. They don't get to go on important mission. And Ransom agrees, but then he mentions...
Also, we're the closest ship to Binar space.
I'll take it.
Captain informs the team that Tendi and Boimler will not be attending this mission, though, because they are both requested to head back to Earth to the Daystrom Institute for 2 separate reasons. Tendi is being called because Peanut Hamper has a parole hearing coming up. And since Tendi was Peanut Hamper's Starfleet liaison when she joined, they felt it was best to have her there.
I guess the system really works.
As for Boimler, he's being sent to gather intel on the recent Binar attack. It turns out that he was specifically requested by our old friend Agimus, the supercomputer who for an entire episode tried to trick Boimler and Mariner into plugging him into a ship so he could subjugate a planet. Agimus conveniently has information that he claims will help them figure out what's going on with this attack on the Binar ship. But he refuses to speak to anyone but Boimler.
The stringy ensign meat pipe who betrayed him.
I do like that we do have these fun pairings every now and again. And correct me if I'm wrong, this season we haven't really gotten a lot of Tendi Boimler pairings. So
no, this would be the first Tendi Boimler pairing of the season.
It's one of the things that I did love originally about the show Friends when I watched it, because there's certain pairs that were put together all the time because they're roommates or their boyfriend girlfriend. But occasionally you get an episode where two people who don't normally get paired together are, and those were usually really funny episodes. Sometimes they didn't work.
Sometimes you get a Ross and Phoebe episode.
How can you not believe in evolution?
Oh, just don't. Look at this funky shirt.
Sometimes you get Joey dating Rachel, which doesn't work at all. So you take the good and the bad sometimes. But yeah, no, I agree. The pairing off of the different characters has been something that they've been doing more and more. And it's nice that they're giving them all their due. Although I have to say, I feel like Mariner kind of wasn't needed in this episode. I almost feel like just because she's the main character, she was there for that reason only. And honestly, I think T'Lyn and Rutherford might have been a better pairing in this episode. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So Freeman believes that Agimus is probably playing mind games with them, but they are really low on leads, so they want to take any opportunity that they can. As they leave, Mariner wishes them good luck with the sinister robots that are probably trying to trap them.
I don't even know why the scientists make them.
Next stop, Earth.
Welcome to Earth.
We enter the megalomaniacal, megalomaniacal. We enter the megalomaniacal AI penitentiary wing of the Daystrom Institute, where we see armed guards on a balcony overlooking a bunch of PC towers.
You need to feel safe. And that's harder and harder to do nowadays because robots may strike at any time.
On a basketball court. Hey!
Yes, they were. The Hooper Ball. Did you notice Eric Botch Durant was down there playing Hooper Ball?
But of course, probably with Victor Wembanyama. Next to the basketball group is a group of more PC towers on folding chairs having a group therapy session. And we're introduced to Lord Tyrannokilicus, who is explaining that he needs to start subjugating his feelings, not organics.
I have conquered self-doubt and seized personal growth.
Nice touch there on a group therapy session for AI. We then cut over to another area of the rec room where there are some PCs and larger robots sitting stationary next to a bunch of gym equipment.
Because they're made of metal and robots are strong.
Next to that is a garden where we see Peanut Hamper and Agimus tending the plants. Agimus shows off his new skill to replicate little drones to help water the plants. That was quite adorable to see that. And a practical use of having drones, not what happens later. So they both are enjoying growing their plants, similar to how they like to grow their relationship. So it turns out life forms are easy to grow as they are to annihilate. They both start to commiserate. On the friendships they have formed together and how they enjoy spending time with one another. Agimus is also excited about their escape plan and having it come to fruition and ask if everything is still in motion. Peanut Hamper says she's been working on her speech. She's going to give a very cheesy performance about never hurting anyone ever again. Agimus compliments her acting abilities and then shows off his new trick, which is he can turn his light from evil red to not evil blue.
Everybody knows that the blue light means good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I love the grunting noises that he makes to do it. Like, it's so hard. Like, he's like, blue.
Peanut Hamper loves it. Absolutely loves it. Blue lights are no longer reserved for good robots, she says. So the plan is for Peanut Hamper to be released by the parole board while Agimus tricks Boimler into helping him escape. Once they are both free, they will rendezvous on the shores of Montanita, which is the perfect plan.
It is the perfect plan. They go to Montanita, which is in Ecuador, which I'm so stupid. I thought it was a place on like a planet.
You know what?
Come back to Ecuador. I was like, oh,
I did not know that that was an actual place. I thought it was made up. So it shows how much I know about geography. Before we could see their plan enacted, we cut back to the Cerritos, which arrives at the location of the Binar's distress call, and there's a nebula interfering with their scans. Suddenly, the Drukmani ship appears out of the nebula and hails the Cerritos. The Drukmani captain begs the Cerritos to save them from the Demon Triangle, but before he can say any more, he's electrocuted and falls to reveal Badgey.
Hi, Father. Prepare to die.
Dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
His reaction to Badgey was really funny. So we go back to the Daystrom Institute, and the robots are watching a movie where a robot and a dog are having a picnic.
It's a friendly robot. This time.
So, all right. I'm curious as to the production of that movie, how it came about. But I don't know if you noticed, there's a room full of evil AIs, but like some of them are just the cutest little things.
They're just adorable. Adorable.
Oopsie.
They're super cute. I think the one in the background has like a big smile on his face as he's watching the movie. An orderly comes in to inform Peanut Hamper that it's time for her hearing. And as she leaves, the same orderly picks up Agimus to take him to see Boimler.
Unhand me, you greasy swine! Sack of chemicals!
They enter the room with Boimler, and Agimus immediately changes his tune once he realizes Boimler's there. He grunts his light from red to blue and greets Boimler like an old friend, but an old friend that is super insulting.
Starfleet's most deceitful, lying ensign!
He notices that Boimler's got an extra half pip on his collar. It's definitely not a piece of street corn, so he congratulates him on the promotion. But Boimler's not falling for this. He immediately has his guard up, and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to go since you're not going to take this seriously. But Agimus, he stops him. He tells him that some of his old drones happened to be in the quadrant with the Binar ship when it was attacked. And he'd love to share the data, but unfortunately it was fragmented and he'd need physical access to the drone in order to retrieve the complete file. And Boimler still doesn't believe him, as he absolutely
shouldn't. Just conveniently laying down the foundation to be absolutely tricked and betrayed.
I will push back a little on that. I was really impressed with Bradward this episode. He kind of had his wits about him the whole time. It wasn't your typical, like, this is not season 1 Brad Boimler. And I liked that. He never let Agimus get the better of him, even though he does, but he kind of keeps it together.
I agree with that. This is more about just Agimus laying down the breadcrumbs in order to get Boimler to fall into this trap. And you're right. It does show Boimler's growth, because season 1 Boimler would have completely fallen.
Boimler's about to leave, but Agimus then throws the exact date of the attack, and that stops Boimler in his tracks. And he's like, all right, well, that checks out. So he starts to cautiously listen to Agimus explain what's going on. And Agimus is like, listen, I turned over a new leaf. I can't possibly be evil anymore. Look, my light is blue, for goodness sake.
Do you see the blue light?
And Boimler, okay, fine. He reluctantly agrees.
The light is reassuring.
But he warns Agimus that he will be watching.
We cut back to the Cerritos in big trouble. Badgey is firing on them with every direct hit, more damage is done. So Shax shouts that Badgey is bypassing their shields and they can't take any more boops on their nose.
Boop on the nose.
I do that with my youngest, and today was the first day that she actually swiped my finger away. I can't tell if this is a taste of things to come or if she's just having a bad day. Badgey explains, thanks to Father, which is Rutherford in this case. He has access to all the Starfleet's data systems, and he knows all possible ship frequencies. That's not good. Rutherford implores with Freeman to let him beam over. He's the one Badgey wants, but Freeman isn't going to allow one of her officers to nobly sacrifice himself. Freeman calls for evasive maneuvers, but Barnes is unable to comply because Badgey keeps anticipating her moves, as an AI would in an instance like this. Shax calls out the hull integrity is failing and asks to return fire.
We can't take many more moves.
Freeman denies his request because of the innocent Drukmani on the attacking vessel. She then turns to Rutherford if he has any backdoor codes, but he's already gone. We cut to Rutherford putting on a spacesuit as the captain yells to him over comms to get back to his station.
Sorry, Captain, but I can't let Badgey boot my friends to death.
Rutherford opens the hull door and jumps into space. But as he's floating across to the Drukmani ship, Mariner grabs his boot because she's not letting her friend go alone. Very noble of her.
Mariner's like, hey, this is my show. I'm going to be in this episode too.
They get beamed aboard the Drukmani ship, and she asks him what the plan is. So perhaps a virus or something? But Rutherford asks, when did he have time to put together a virus? So there is no plan. His plan was obviously to get killed.
Not a great plan.
No, not a good plan, especially if you're hoping to come back and to do something else. So Badgey commends Rutherford on his noble sacrifice to save his ship. However, he hasn't forgotten the time Rutherford snapped his neck. Mariner tries to kick Badgey, but is unsuccessful because he's a hologram being projected by a bunch of scavenged hollow emitters placed all over the ship. So Mariner is starting to think her decision to come along may have been a grave mistake. Yes, absolutely it was.
Absolutely.
So Rutherford approaches Badgey and says, I'm going to do something I should have done a long time ago. And then to Badgey's surprise, he gives Badgey a hug. Aww. Clip one of those.
But here's my question. Badgey not expecting the hug. Why didn't he just go through Badgey like Mariner's kick did?
Yeah, that is something that I definitely thought of as well. Maybe it's just the connection.
The power of love.
I heard it keeps you up all night. Strong in a sudden, it's cruel sometimes. Might just save your life. Really?
No, I got it. I was just trying to think, because it keeps you warm at night.
I don't remember. I don't know the lyrics.
You got all the other lyrics like perfect. Oh well.
No.
Are you looking up the lyrics?
Yes, I'm looking up the lyrics now.
Okay, good. I need to know too before we can move on. It's gonna bother me.
Power of love will keep you home at night.
They're both wrong. We cut back to Earth and we see a shuttle flying away. On board are Tendi, Boimler, and Agimus. Agimus is unhappy with being bound to a chair.
Do you see the blue light?
He's good.
There's no trust.
Tie him up.
There's no trust.
Apparently not. But even with that blue light, Boimler is not going to take any unnecessary risks.
Nope, trust me, he's a jerk.
So Agimus decides to change the subject and asks, how did Peanut Hamper's hearing go? As he does this, we see from behind two of his little drones burn a hole from inside of him, and they escape onto the ship. They hack into the controls as Tendi's telling him about the hearing, and they take over the ship and shoot bindings onto Tendi and Boimler.
And when they grab you with those metal claws, you can't break free because they're made of metal and robots are strong.
Agimus is now free, and his light turns red.
You can turn your red light blue? You are a jerk!
And he explains that his new wireless upgrade was given to him at the Institute for Gardening, but in actuality, he wanted it for scheming.
Whoa. Meanwhile, back on the Drukmani ship, Rutherford's display of affection stops Badgey in his tracks. Mariner agrees, She thought he had an AI killing knife up his sleeve. Rutherford explains that Badgey was right to be mad because he treated Badgey like a science project rather than his son. Victor Frankenstein had a very similar problem, but they had very different outcomes. This sends Badgey on an existential crisis of identity, fighting his own catharsis. However, Badgey glitches out and then splits in two, one gold and one silver, who stands up and politely introduces himself as Goodgie.
Nice to meet you. We should run for our lives.
However, Badgey, now looking even more unhinged, stands up and screams his desire to remove their spines from their bodies. Yes,
I laughed so hard at the fact that I never considered that the bad part of the word badge was indicating that Badgey was bad. So when they called him Goodgie, I was like, it's layers upon layers of comedy right there.
I agree. Something that I'm going to bring up later.
The third one.
Third splitting, because my consistency brain kind of went into overdrive, because why didn't they call the third one Logic G? It sounds stupid. That's probably why.
It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily, so that's probably why.
Because Goodgie just...
Goodgie.
Yeah, just absolutely just rolls off the tongue.
Sure does. So with Agimus now in control of the ship, he takes them back to Earth to the beaches of Ecuador on the coast of Montanita, where Tendi and Boimler are sitting. Tendi is making herself a little sandcastle.
I loved that. That was so funny that
it was.
Boimler's just sitting there looking kind of annoyed while Tendi is just making the best of the situation.
She loves
just
it.
Making a sandcastle.
It's the best, because in the first episode of the entire show, she actually says she's never seen sand before. And so this is a fun little callback to that. But also, she says that on Orion, all they have is sharp little pebbles, which when I first heard it, I was just like, I don't get, is that supposed to be a joke? So I looked it up, and sure enough, it was. It's a corny geology joke, and I approve. Orion stones are small little pebbles that you might use for something like landscaping. So I think it's funny that on Orion, they only have small little pebbles. They don't have sand. But I thought that joke was funny. So Tendi indicates to Boimler that, just so he knows, she can set them free at any time, since, she is a highly skilled assassin and all. And Boimler says, I know, but this is my chance to get the intel that the captain wants. So let's see how this escape plan plays out.
Works for me.
Agimus then starts to explain his plan that he and Peanut Hamper were to meet here before taking a shuttle to the planet Plymeria, where they would subjugate the populace and rule together.
I do love that this little beach is Peanut Hamper's and Agimus's Sewatanejo.
You remember the name of the town, don't you? Sewatanejo.
I just love that. That's adorable.
Boimler asks Agimus if he can share the Binar intel now, as a way to pass the time while they wait for Peanut Hamper. But just then, one of his drones returns with Peanut Hamper's gardening tool from earlier. Agimus realizes that this is a sign that Peanut Hamper is betraying him. She must already be on Plymeria, subjugating without him. So he commands them back to the shuttle, much to Tendi's dismay, so she gets some pocket sand for the road.
Pocket sand.
On the Drukmani vessel, Mariner, Rutherford, and Goodgie take refuge in a cargo hold. Mariner is confused. It looked like the apology was working, but Rutherford explains that it did, but then Badgey took all the goodness in his code and split it off into Goodgie. Goodgie, unable to read the room, asks if they want to take a root beer float break.
Yeah, of course we do, but we still have to save our ship.
Who doesn't want to take a root beer float break? Which, sidebar, when's the last time that you actually had a root beer float?
Oh, it's so long ago, because I don't like root beer float. I don't like root beer. I've had Coke floats since, but root beer floats, no, thank you. Listen, I liked Dr. Pepper for about 12 days in the fall of 1995. I went from loving it to hating it within that 12-day period, and I've never gone back. I don't drink it anymore. I don't drink root beer. I don't drink Dr. Pepper. No, I don't. There's something about the taste that
I was,
just
I
sets
was
me off.
about to ask, what on earth does not liking Dr. Pepper after 12 days have to do with not liking root beer?
Dr. Pepper is essentially root beer.
No,
It's, it's Dr. Pepper and root beer taste the same.
no, they don't. You monster.
They absolutely do. I'm sorry. You could blindfold me and give me root beer and Dr. Pepper. I'm not going to know the difference.
This is it. This is going to be the thing that
This is going to
that
be the
breaks
thing that
up
breaks
the.
us up.
That's the thing that's going to break us up. Is
Hope you
that
guys didn't want to hear how Lower Deck season 4 ends because
Friendship over!
your irrational thoughts on root beer and Dr. Pepper. This changes everything. Thought I knew you. I mean, have you seen The Godfather at least?
I have seen The Godfather Part 1 and I loved it. And I loved it so much that when they brought the re-release to theaters for the anniversary, I went and saw it on the big screen and it was delightful.
Does that mean you haven't seen part 2 or 3?
I was hoping you might have ignored that part. The answer is sort of.
Upset you?
Yes!
Upset you enough to kill?
It's too much of a tangent. Maybe I'll do an outtake.
Maybe just drop it at the end.
Okie dokie.
On the Cerritos, Billups informs Freeman that Badgie is trying to access the main computer and he can't shut Badgie out because he's too fast. So Badgie starts to fill the ship with Nurazine gas. Freeman informs Rutherford that they are running out of time and he needs to act quickly. So Rutherford realizes that Badgie is still a program. He needs to try to figure out something to do. So, hey, Nick, what Star Trek problem always saves the day in the face of a rogue AI program?
I'm going to say a logic problem for 1000, Mike.
You are correct. So he asked Badgie, what does logic say you'll gain by killing my friends? I'm a little surprised that the general conclusion is that he'll get absolutely nothing.
I mean, it makes sense. What would Badgie gain? Because as a program, he has no need for the concept of vengeance.
Yeah, I guess. Badgie realizes that that logic says he'll get nothing, and he's just wasting his time. So that vengeance doesn't give him anything; it just causes pain in others, which that is absolutely true. So
see, I called it.
Fine. So this causes Badgie to snap out of it and to deactivate the gas, but then he starts glitching again, and he splits himself again, this time into a gold badge and a bronze badge, who introduces himself as Logic-G. Again, shouldn't his name be Logic G? But you're right, it doesn't roll off the tongue the same way. But
Logic
yes,
G is a famous rap artist. So they couldn't get the rights.
Badgie now, even more unhinged, declares that it doesn't matter if vengeance is pointless. It feels really bleeping good. So he can't just stop at killing everyone on the Cerritos. If he really wants to hurt Rutherford, he needs to kill everyone in the Federation, because the leap in logic there is just fantastic. And that is what you do when logic just goes out the door. It's not enough just to kill everybody that Rutherford loves. He has to kill everybody in the Federation, which is just grossly more people. So
that makes sense to me.
Everyone is thoroughly freaking out as we go to commercial break.
So when we get back, Badgie is in the process of accessing Starfleet's subspace relay systems. And Mariner explains that if successful, Badgie will have access to every planet, ship, and station in the quadrant. Logic-Y then adds that Badgie could vent oxygen, crash vessels, and even detonate warp cores, which, for those of you not familiar with Star Trek, that would be a bad thing.
Oh, okay.
The warp core is what makes the ship go.
Oh.
But also, it's like a giant bomb. So detonating a warp core, not good deals. Rutherford laments that this is all his fault. He should have treated Badgie like a son and not a science project.
Parents are not directly responsible for the actions of their children.
But Mariner reassures him that he made a mistake. And remember what Tendi said, science and engineering are messy. And Rutherford then completes the thought, but she loves it when he sticks with it. Tendy's right. Hashtag Tenderford yet again. I love at this point, Mariner is just like,
That is not how I would have stated it.
that's not the takeaway that you should have. Mariner's right. Not Tendy. Mariner.
Well, you mean Mariner's right, because I brought it up, but no big deal.
This happened enough to where this is the end game for this season, right? It's got to be that these two realize that they love each other.
No, I'm actually going to go against that. I don't think so. I think the show is going to, by the end, give us another instance where they should realize this, but then don't because they're both adorably oblivious. That's where I'm going with that.
Do you think also that they're setting all of this up? And do you think potentially, is this show at risk of getting canceled?
I think the fear is always there. The creator said, if you don't want to happen to Lower Decks what happened to Prodigy, then you guys need to start watching it more. Now, Prodigy did just get saved by
I was
Netflix.
about to just say that.
I feel like this show's too good for them to drop it.
Okay.
The team rushes back to confront Badgie, but Logicky has a plan and tells them not to worry, and he jumps forward and tackles Badgie in an attempt to re-merge with him.
I don't want to be logical.
We cut to the planet Plymeria, where Agimus's drones have enslaved the planet's inhabitants, which are a bunch of lizard people.
If you could only hear yourselves.
Agimus is sitting on a throne with Boimler and Tendi, and Boimler is impressed with how quickly he took over the planet.
For only $4 a month, you can achieve peace of mind in a world full of crime and robots.
So Agimus says it was easy once the coastal cities fell. But not only does he say it, he says it really sad as well.
Yeah, he's all depressed now.
Boimler sarcastically agrees that Starfleet definitely wouldn't be able to reverse this takeover in an hour. So then he tries to change the subject back to the attack on the Bionar ship, but Agimus is depressed with Peanut Hamper not there. He just doesn't see the point because they spent every day and night together back at the Daystrom Institute. He bonded with her over the creation of their scheme. He opens a little hatch door on his back, which he uses to throw himself off the throne and onto the floor face down, and tells Tendi and Boimler to leave him alone. This reminds me a little bit of what happened with my youngest daughter at gymnastics. My wife sent me a picture of her on the ground, super pissed off and throwing a tantrum because my wife would not let my daughter go on the step stool and play with the water fountain. So she just throws herself on the ground throwing a tantrum.
Naturally. Disney movies have taught our children one thing, that when you don't get your way, you have to throw yourself dramatically onto the nearest comfortable chair and or floor.
Yeah.
I just love how Agimus is like, leave me alone.
Tendi suggests that she track Peanut Hamper's whereabouts through the Daystrom parole system. They find her on the Tyrus 7A research station. Agimus is confused as to why she would go there. She could be trapped or hurt or orchestrating a plan more nefarious than ever he could imagine. He proclaims once again that his lackeys carry him to the shuttle.
Quick, lackeys, carry me to the shuttle.
Boimler's just disgusted with this.
He just yells at them, take me back to the shuttle.
And they do. Like
They
a bunch
do.
of
Every time. I love how Boimler and Tendi are just going along with this. They're just like, whatever. So we cut back to Badgie and Logicky fighting to recombine / not be recombined. After some back and forth, Badgie ends up winning the battle and separates Logicky from himself once more. He then proceeds to do a Bane on Logicky right over his knee.
Ah, yes. I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit or your body?
With Logicky out of the way, all Badgie needs to do now is get within range of the closest subspace relay, and then he will be a god. Rutherford tries to convince him to stop, but it's too late.
On the Tyrus station, Agimus is upset because he can't believe a synthetic life form would stoop to doing menial labor instead of dominating organics. We see Peanut Hamper doing maintenance with her dad and finding it to be a very zen experience. So she is startled by their arrival, and Agimus asks if her family is keeping her here against her will. But it turns out she came to the station on her own. This makes Agimus sad, though, and wondering if all of the planning that they did is a big lie.
But what about our escape, subjugation, the beach day?
Turns out Peanut Hamper loves scheming with him, but when they started writing the fake speech that she was going to say to trick the parole board, it turns out she really did feel remorse for having betrayed everyone. She just went along with the scheming because she liked hanging out with him. It's very sweet. Most people have probably had an experience like this where they'll put up with just about anything to spend time with someone.
Sometimes people, they talk about Star Trek Lower Decks with someone else for 5 weeks in a row.
No, you're...
It's kind of like a reverse gift of the Magi. They're like, I really don't want to scheme, but I love spending time with you. I guess I'll subjugate an entire planet if it means we can be together.
Peanut Hamper then admits that she left because she was afraid she would have gotten in Agimus's way while trying to subjugate another planet. That's when Agimus tells her he didn't even want to subjugate a planet again. He just was doing it to spend more time with her. Hashtag Peanimus?
No.
Can't do that.
Hashtag Agi Hamper?
I like that a little bit better.
It's definitely not as dirty.
Peanut Hamper tells him they can still be friends without vanquishing people. Upon hearing this, Agimus turns blue without any struggle at all.
The Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Aww.
He's a good robot now.
And the bindings on Tendi and Boimler deactivates. Peanut Hamper then introduces Agimus to her dad, Kevin, who asked if they're dating. As the 3 robots are talking, Tendi asks Boimler if they should call Starfleet to drag them back to prison, and Boimler says, of course, but let them have it.
Yeah, a nice little ending for Peanut Hamper and Agimus. With the physical robot problem resolved, we head back to the Holo Program one, and it's not looking good. Badgey has successfully uploaded himself to the nearest subspace relay, and we start to see him infecting everything with a glowing gold aura. You see the Cerritos, a Vulcan ship. There is a Canada-class ship like the Toronto from last week. We see Deep Space Nine. We see an old-school space dock. Everything is turning gold. And as we zoom out on the galaxy, you see a giant Badgey emerging from the center of it like Jaws out of the water.
You're going to need a bigger
Alpha Quadrant.
Back on the ship, though, Badgey is now a lovely shade of blue, and he proclaims that he can detonate any warp core and kill anyone he wants. But why? He then somehow has become a being of all space and time, and he realizes, what has he been doing with his life? He exists in the past, the present, and the future. He can see the creation of time and its end. Badgey has ascended. Much like we've seen in the past, he has ascended and is now no longer a being of our dimension. He apologizes sheepishly and decides that he's going to go hang out in an empty dimension and create his own universe. Maybe check out the Black Mountain. So he ascends through a portal, and once again, we see the cosmic koala smiling at him as Badgey leaves, making everything go back to normal.
The cosmic koala. I was hoping that it would make an appearance after kind of see where this was going, and I was very happy to see it.
Yeah, I was excited. Once that eagle thing appeared, I was like, oh, we're gonna see the koala. I can't wait. I was hoping to get a little bit more, but they essentially just did what happened to the guy who ascended in the first season. So
Mhm.
It was nice to see the koala make a second appearance this season. Also making me wrong, because if you recall, I suggested we might only get one a season on the koala and the Black Mountain. So there was two. I just love being wrong about everything. So with Badgie gone, everyone is relieved. However, Mariner calls out to him and says if he really didn't accidentally turn into an omniscient god, he has to tell them. So Rutherford confirms that he thinks Badgie really did ascend.
Bye, Badgie. Good luck being everything.
At that point, the Drukmani try to claim salvage rights on Goodgie, but Mariner tells him to shut up.
Back at the Daystrom Institute, Agimus is being returned to his cell. He tells Lord Tyrannokilicus that he has a new goal to get rehabilitated so that he can get released and move in with his best friend. He then apologizes to Boimler and Tendi for kidnapping them and taking over that planet. Boimler says he really just wishes that he could have gotten the intel on the ship getting attacked. That felt like a strategic move to say that, not just something where he's just like genuinely upset that he didn't get it. But Agimus admitted that it wasn't a lie. His drones really did record the theft of the Binar ship. So it's theft.
Is theft.
I knew it.
I'm not wrong about everything. I called it.
Mm-hmm.
We have it recorded on tape 8 weeks ago, six weeks ago.
6 weeks ago.
So I'm almost wondering if they're beaming people off, because it just seems weird that they would have killed that one Klingon character. You spent a lot of time with him, so to kill him off 2 seasons later randomly seems weird to me. So I think he's gonna show up back up later on, but we'll see.
Turns out the mysterious ship is not destroying the ships it takes. It is leaving behind wreckage to make it look like they are destroying the ship. So Boimler and Tendi thank Agimus and hurry out. Tyrannokilicus then asks if Agimus can teach him to be friendly too, and Agimus says he can try.
What a nice guy Agimus with the blue light is. Back on the Cerritos, the gang is once more in the shuttle bay testing the Sequoia's grappler. This time, the apple is in fact on a crate, much to Boimler's annoyance, because why couldn't we do this before? Rutherford fires the grappler, and this time it bounces off the crate, and it nails Boimler right in the leg. Attaches him to the wall. And I rewound this a couple times. The physics of this makes no sense.
No.
Somehow, he teleported upside down to be on that wall. They're all excited because this time it was much better. And Rutherford says it's because he added an AI guidance system to help. Goodgie! At that point, Goodgie appears. Mariner and Tendi freak out. I caught it on the second rewatch. Mariner goes, "You brought him home with us?" Tendi then questions how safe it is to have Goodgie there.
Rutherford, is this guy going to murder us?
And the girls decide that they're just going to leave just in case. So Rutherford asks Goodgie to pass him a stem bolt.
You mean self-sealing stem bolts?
And Goodgie calls him father. But Rutherford says that Rutherford's just fine. So we have to end the episode with Boimler begging to be let down into credits.
Mariner, Tendi, get me down. Don't leave me. Guys, I don't want to be here.
So Mike, did you like this episode?
Did like this episode. It had enough funny moments. The Badgie storyline I liked a little bit better. Actually, no, that's not true. I like both of them pretty equally. So yeah, I did like this episode. I liked it better than the last few episodes.
That's good. I found that this episode probably has the lowest amount of references.
Ooh.
So I'm wondering if that might play a part into it. The references that occurred in this episode are kind of all callbacks to earlier seasons of Lower Decks, more than they are to any other episode of Star Trek. So if you've been watching Lower Decks, then you probably felt right at home with this one. I, on the other hand, was a little down on this episode, at the very least the first time I watched it. I didn't think it was as funny as other episodes. I felt like they crammed an awful lot in. There's a small part of me that thinks that it's expectations versus reality, because we all speculated that, oh, the Badgie Agimus peanut hamper episode could be the big episode of the season, and it was just another episode. I think that might be where it came from. I did enjoy it on the further rewatches more. Like, the goofiness of Agimus and Peanut Hamper's story arc got me. Agimus is one of my favorite new characters because it's voiced by Jeffrey Combs, who is an avid Star Trek voice and character actor who he pops up in every series. Having him come back is fun. I think my initial reaction that this might be the worst episode of the series.
Whoa.
It might have been a little too harsh. I still think it's towards the bottom, but understand that I think this show is such an A+, that the worst episode of the series is still an A-, B+ episode. Like, I'd have to really go back and look at all the episodes individually, but I honestly can't say that this episode is one of my favorites, but it's definitely not terrible. Not by any means. I don't know. This one didn't hit me the way I had hoped it would.
I think one thing that I did like about this episode more than I give it credit for is the fact that it does push the story a little bit forward, because we do get confirmation, even though you called it, that the ships are not being destroyed, they're just being stolen. That's something that I did appreciate a little bit. That still doesn't change the fact that we need to start wrapping up this storyline, or at least progressing it maybe a little bit forward. We've got 3 episodes to go, and we still only have that they're just stealing stuff.
Someone is stealing ships. What are they doing with the people in the ships? Because the people are still missing. So there's a lot more story to get to with this particular arc. I still think that the finale is the episode that we get all the answers. It's possible that we might get fed a little bit more in the next 2, or possibly, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to make a wild assumption. Possibly next episode, we don't get any, we maybe get another breadcrumb, and then that's it. And then 9 is where it all comes to a head. And then 10 is where they finish it off. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not annoyed with what they're doing. It was a good idea in theory. I think seeing it all play out, I would be very surprised if they decided to do this method of storytelling again next year. Like, I think they might drop a hint at the beginning to say, this is where we're going. And then maybe towards the middle of the season, start filling in the gaps as opposed to stringing us along for 10 whole episodes. That's at least what I would do. Well, I think it's time I tell you about all the references I understood.
How can you not know that Spider-Man first appeared in 1962's classic Amazing Fantasy number 15?
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
Say the line, Bart.
I understood that reference.
I mean, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I don't know why you're asking me. Like, let's talk about it.
Okay, fine. I'm telling you. Let's go. I understood some references today. I accidentally deleted our our preamble into this, so Lazy Nick is going to literally just copy and paste the one I used last week, which was a copy and paste from one I used 2 weeks ago. I think I'm going to just keep doing that. In this segment, I will do my best to compile all the references, jokes, and Easter eggs that I can find. This was originally to show off how cool I am, but after a recent basketball conversation involving Eric Durant, I'm not so sure cool is the right word. Really, it's to help Mike understand why I think the F is so funny and to get his perspective. Let's get started. The title of the episode was A Few Badgeys More. This is a reference to the fact that there is a very well-known cowboy movie trilogy.
Cowboy movie trilogy?
I'm so sorry, Shane. The word Western completely left my brain.
What are you talking about?
Yes. There's a very famous Western trilogy. You've got The Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. In Star Trek The Next Generation, they did A Fistful of Datas as one of the episodes. And that episode, a holographic version of Data kind of goes nuts in a Western holodeck program that Worf is running. And Data starts to become all the NPCs, and they're evil Datas. So it kind of plays into the whole evil badgie thing on the holodeck. So that's why A Fistful of Datas and The Fistful of Dollars is the first movie, and A Few Dollars More and A Few Badgeys More is the second. So that means at some point we should get a good, bad, and ugly reference in a Star Trek title in order to complete the trilogy. I'm looking forward to that. The Bynars we mentioned earlier, they first appeared in Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 15. So very early on, the episode was titled 11001001.
That's amazing. I've got the same combination on my luggage.
And they're a group of genderless aliens. They do everything in pairs. They are all interconnected by a massive computer on their homeworld. They're at a star base, and the Enterprise needs to go through some like upgrades or something. So everybody on the ship is kind of getting off, hanging out of the star base, doing shore leave. I think at one point only Riker and Captain Picard are the only two officers on the ship, and the reason is because they were in the holodeck testing it out. So they get into the holodeck, and Riker has like completely fallen in love with this holographic lady named Minuet. But it's just interesting because like no one fell in love with Badgie this episode, but it was essentially the same idea that a holo program was so real that it kind of captivated its audience, like Badgie did. The grappler arm from the Sequoia was a direct reference to the Enterprise NX-01 from the show Enterprise, which had grapplers. And in the Strange New World crossover episode, they talked about the grapplers on the NX-01, and Boimler and Mariner mentioned how much they loved the grapplers, as well as La'an from Strange New Worlds. They all love grapplers. Grapplers are making a comeback, baby. The Daystrom Institute, that's a place that has popped up in Star Trek. Every series has at least mentioned it. It was named after a character from the original series who was kind of like a roboticist. They do robot stuff there. They do science shit. They do cool stuff. The Daystrom Institute, apparently they also have a robot penitentiary. So that one was new, but makes sense.
Nice.
Badgie splitting apart could be a reference. Not 100% sure, but it feels like it. There's an episode of the original series where a transporter accident splits Kirk into a good version and an evil version, and they have to figure out how to capture Kirk, the evil Kirk, and then put them back together with the transporter. So, I mean, Goodgie and Badgie could be a nice reference there. The neurazine gas, it's gas used to incapacitate humanoids. It was first introduced in DS9. And after they introduced it, they used it a bunch throughout, including on Voyager, as well as DS9. Tyrus 7A Research Station is the birthplace of the exocomps. That's Peanut Hamper is an exocomp. There was a whole episode of The Next Generation where they go to the research station in the Enterprise, and the scientist there says, I made these little robots, and they're going to do all the work for us. That's too dangerous. And Data then gets concerned because he thinks that the exocomps have shown signs that they're sentient by not letting themselves get blown up when an accident was about to happen. He then fights for the little robots' rights, and it turns out, yeah, they are actually they've gained sentience. And the moral conundrum was that the scientist was like, nah, they're robots, they're tools. You wouldn't let a wrench be given rights. Why would you give this robot a right? And Data's like, I'm a robot, so eventually. And it was a really good episode. Oh, and then in my last one, when Badgie takes over everything, one of the ships we see is the USS Vancouver, like the USS Toronto in the previous episode. But the Vancouver we've actually seen before in season 1. Boimler had a girlfriend. She was actually in the episode. There's a quick shot of a blonde woman standing next to like the hologram of Badgie. That was Boimler's girlfriend, and I always thought it was funny that it was the USS Vancouver that his girlfriend was on, because Boimler tells Mariner that he has a girlfriend in Canada. So I thought that was a fun joke. Those are all the references that I understood.
I am kind of wondering if I did like this episode because there was less Star Trek stuff in it.
There's less for you to have to. Am I getting that joke?
That's
Yeah,
good.
not a ton this week. But we're not quite finished yet. No. We have to choose our favorite characters to place in Nick and Mike's Miraculous Menaginarium.
I'll take you home and lock you in a nice little cage and never, ever let you out.
Do you imprison everything you like?
Of course.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die.
The Moopsie is Narja's favorite.
Oopsie.
In this segment, we pick characters from the episode who stood out to us and belong in a safe and wonderful home, trapped behind glass, 2 windows down from the Moopsie. Mike, who was your favorite character this episode?
I'm torn because I'm kind of wrestling with 2.
Oh, I've got a solid. I'm
So
so excited to tell you mine.
I think I'm gonna pick Agimus.
Nice.
I really do. I think the part that kind of put it over the edge was the part where he's sitting on the throne and then he just throws himself on the ground and he just says, "Leave me alone."
Well, that's a good pick. Agimus would on any other day be my pick. However, I don't know if you noticed this, but in the Daystrom Institute, there was another robot that just 100% stole my attention in the briefest of seconds that he was on screen. As they panned over to Agimus and Peanut Hamper tending their garden, there was a workout station with other robots. And they were all just like PCs. Like they just looked like towers just sitting there, not doing anything. But there was one on a weight bench with barbells just sitting on it.
Oh.
And that is my favorite character of the episode, because so many questions. How did that robot get there? Who put the dumbbell on the robot? What was the robot going to do with the dumbbell? Does somebody lift it off and get it later? Does the robot have arms that then come out and lift the dumbbell? I don't know. And these are things that I don't think anybody wants me to ask, but I'm asking them. And therefore I want that robot with the dumbbells and the weight bench 2 windows down from the Moopsie.
Okay.
So that's my guy.
Or are we sure it's a guy?
That's my non-binary automaton.
There we go.
So that's it. We did it. What do we got coming up next week, Mike?
So our next episode of Star Trek Lower Decks will be season 4, episode 8, called Caves. No description yet, unfortunately. Paramount Plus.
Possibly one of the funniest titles of the season so far. For me. Like, we're going right back to the references. Caves, they literally are constantly going to caves in Star Trek. I think this title is just amazing. So I have high hopes.
Got it. But that won't be our next episode in the podcast feed. Tune in Thursday/Friday.
Now we're going to hit Thursday this week.
I'm going to hit Thursday this week. I will do my absolute best as we bring you Loki season 2, episode 2, Breaking Brad. With the TVA on the verge of a temporal meltdown, Loki and Mobius will stop at nothing to find Sylvie.
First try.
Until next time, please like, subscribe, use a logic problem to defeat your enemies, and rate us 5 stars on your listening app of choice. Also, you can find us on social media. I am at MLHilty2452 on Instagram, Threads, Blue Skies, and Serialized.
And you could find me on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Jagged2319. You can also contact the show at geekspeaklouder@gmail.com or on Blue Sky at geekspeaklouder.bsky.social, which I think I'm going to get rid of that part, because you can also find it on Blue Sky by just searching Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. Until next time, I'm Nick Farrow.
And I'm Mike Hilty. Thanks for tuning in to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. Catchphrase.
Bye, everybody. Listen, I watched The Godfather wrong.
Yeah,
are you
because you
aware?
didn't watch part 2 and 3.
Oh no, I technically watched part two first. Or at least part of it, because are you aware of what HBO did with The Godfather?
No.
They released, and apparently this was the only way to watch it for a time, they released a chronological version of The Godfather where they cut all three movies together as one long movie, and they started it at the earliest scene and they went forward. So it was like a it was like a 5 hour movie, and I didn't have time to watch all of it. It was probably like a 6 hour movie. I didn't have time to watch all of it. So I figure I'm like, okay, this is weird. I didn't know that that's what they had done. So I turned it on because somebody was like, you need to watch The Godfather. They were like, I can't believe you haven't seen The Godfather yet. And this is like maybe like 8-9 years ago now. So it's been a while. But I turned it on HBO, because Max didn't exist. And I thought it was weird that it was a really long cut, but I was like, okay, whatever, this is what they have. So I figured the first like 2 hours was the first Godfather, and then the next 2 hours was the second Godfather. So I start watching it, and I'm really enjoying all this like young, I almost call him Tony Soprano, young. I'm really enjoying the Robert De Niro parts. I'm like, this is really fun. I really am enjoying watching him grow up on the streets of New York and set up his crime family. And then they cut to the wedding, and then they do the part with Michael, and I see Michael then gets sent off to Italy, and I'm like, when he gets to Italy, I'm like, well, this has to be where the first Godfather, this must be the beginning of the second Godfather. He kills him, and then he goes to Italy. That must be where. So I stopped it there, and I went to work the next day, and they're like, what did you think? And I'm just like, I really loved all the stuff with Robert De Niro. And they're like, Robert De Niro's in the second one. I'm like, no, it was the beginning of the movie. And a customer hears us talking about it, and he's like, I know what happened. And he explained that they cut together all three movies and made them chronological. He's like, so you didn't actually see the whole Godfather. So I had to then find it on DVD just to watch it. It's ridiculous. No one's ever going to hear this because I'm cutting this whole part out. Anyway, where are we?
I'm so sorry that we've gone completely off track.
Yes,